Dune: Awakening. Spin-off prequel Dune Prophecy proved a surprise hit when it landed on screens last year, and Awakening will expand the sci-fi universe even further. Set in an alternative reality where Paul was never born, a war of assassins is currently raging across the sandy, spice-rich planet of Arrakis. Your job? Find the lost Freeman, and try to avoid getting eaten by a giant sandworm. How you do that is entirely up to you, thanks to Dune: Awakening's open world. Scavenge resources and build a shelter to protect you from enemies and Arrakis' terrible weather, or seek riches through combat, crafting, and exploration. In a world shared by hundreds of other players, will you rise to lead a great house and control the flow of spice itself? Monster Hunter Wilds. Monster Hunter games have players killing or capturing a variety of terrifying-looking beasties across a number of lush environments. The series has always felt grand, but Wilds promises the biggest Monster Hunter adventure yet. You'll take your custom hunter into the wilderness to track down a lost expedition party with a number of different open-world locales to investigate. You can also get your David Attenborough on, as developers have created a realistic ecosystem within Wilds. Observe the marvels of nature or rush in to protect a fuzzy baby animal from the clutches of a toothy predator. Either way, you haven't seen anything like this on planet Earth. Civilization 7. The announcement of a new Civilization game inspires equally powerful feelings of joy and dread. Yay, I get to lose myself in one of the finest strategy series ever created. Oh no, I'll lose hours of my life to the game that famously makes players say one more turn until the cruel light of the rising sun invades the perimeters of their vision. Still, a new Civilization game feels like mostly good news. We know little about this title, a strange theme for the coming year, though Firaxis Games' guiding hand and the promised ability to mix and match large chunks of history certainly feels like a winning combo for this franchise that has rarely steered us wrong. 2 Point Museum. Following on from the hilarious, brilliant 2 Point Campus and Hospital, the latest installment in this funny franchise tasks players with creating their own museum. We know, it doesn't sound like the most exciting of jobs, but 2 Point creates business management sims with a playful twist. Build your museum, curate exhibits, and educate your visitors to generate buzz. Donations are important to keep things growing, but you'll also want to employ security guards to catch thieves. Players can act out their inner Indiana Jones and head out on expeditions to uncover more treasures as well. Prepare for 2 Point Museum to take over your life. Hollow Knight: Silksong. We want to be optimistic in 2025, which is why Hollow Knight: Silksong has made this list. The game was first announced back in 2019 and had been due to come out in 2023 before it was delayed. There have been whispers of an imminent launch, an official Xbox store page, an Australian rating, but Team Cherry still hasn't given fans a firm release window. Usually the silence would be cause to worry, but the original platformer, set in a fallen kingdom plagued by mysterious disease, was such a delight, and Cherry have had so long to work on it, there's little chance the sequel fails to deliver. Death Stranding 2: On the Beach. Love it or hate it, opinions only seem to go one way or the other. Hideo Kojima's Death Stranding remains one of the most fascinating games of the last 5 years. The first significant project of Kojima's post-Konami era featured all the eerily accurate social commentary, divisive gameplay, and bombastic storytelling we've come to expect it from one of gaming's few true auteurs, and the second installment promises to dive even deeper into the weirdness of this post-apocalyptic world. Though we know relatively little about Death Stranding 2, the game's star-studded cast, Kojima's creative presence, and the original title's fascinating concepts are enough reasons to consider this one of 2025's most highly anticipated new releases. It's doubtful this sequel will make many efforts to appease those turned off by the original's methodical gameplay, but Death Stranding 2's confirmed meditations on the impact of post-COVID society should certainly cause a stir. Split Fiction. The long-awaited follow-up to Award's magnet, It Takes Two, is another gorgeous co-op adventure. This time out, you and a buddy take control of 2 aspiring writers who accidentally get trapped in a shared simulation of their fictional universes. Jumping between sci-fi action and fantastical adventure, our plucky heroes have to work together to stop an evil tech genius from stealing their work. There are dragons, Samus Aran-inspired mech suits, and a level where you apparently play as a sausage. What more could you want? Fable. The Fable franchise is one of gaming's oddest beasts. It has historically fallen short of expectations, in large part due to the outrageous promises that have come to define the series' creator, Peter Molyneux. Yet, those original games also offered a rather unique genre experience that many crave due to a lack of proper alternatives. With their reboot of the franchise, sans Molyneux, developer Playground Games looks to recapture the series' unique charms while inching Fable closer to its full potential. It's a tall task, but the Fable footage released so far demonstrates Playground Ragebound's understanding of the humor and whimsy that have long made Fable one of the most enjoyable fantasy franchises to lose yourself in. Assassin's Creed Shadows. There's a lot riding on Assassin's Creed Shadows. Developer Ubisoft burned up a lot of goodwill with the bug-infested launch of last year's Star Wars Outlaws, which then didn't sell as well as expected. Keen to avoid making the same mistake twice, the studio delayed Shadows by 4 months. There are also plans to launch 10 Assassin's Creed games in the next 5 years, so Shadows really needs to deliver. Away from all that industry talk though, Shadows looks like it'll be a genuinely thrilling adventure. Set in 16th century Japan, players will spend their time helping guerrilla warfare expert Neo and unlikely ally Yasuke, a samurai based on the historical figure of the same name, do battle against a number of threats. There's also a new parkour system, which looks like a flipping good time. Tales of the Shire, a The Lord of the Rings game. When you think of The Lord of the Rings, you probably imagine sprawling adventures that end with brutal cinematic battles between the forces of good and evil. We've always quite liked the idea of a quiet life in the Shire though, which is exactly what this cozy new game offers. In it, you get to create your own adorable hobbit, and then head out into this idyllic corner of Middle-earth for fun, food, and a frolicking good time. Developers have promised familiar faces, but this is one Lord of the Rings story that hopefully won't be interrupted by snarling orcs or the Dark Lord Sauron. Kingdom Come: Deliverance 2. 2018's Kingdom Come: Deliverance boasts one of the strangest success stories in modern gaming. Following a Kickstarter campaign that seemed to be built on unrealistic promises, Deliverance launched with quite a few bugs and several controversies. And yet, a few patches and a little distance revealed Deliverance to be one of the best attempts to recapture those old Elder Scrolls feelings, and a pretty incredible medieval RPG in its own right. With Kingdom Come: Deliverance 2, developer Warhorse Studios looks to make the most of the lessons they learned from the first game. Set shortly after the original, Deliverance 2 looks far smoother than its predecessor ever was, yet has lost none of that outside-the-box ambition that made the original feel so special. Mafia: The Old Country. The fourth entry in the menacing Mafia series takes things back to the beginning. This gritty mob story is set in Silly's unforgiving underworld at the turn of the century, and you play as Enzo, a newcomer to the Torrisi crime family who has big plans for his own future. While Mafia 3 was an open-world adventure, The Old Country is a linear, narrative-driven rags to bloody riches story that echoes the first 2 games in the series, with developers hoping to create a focused, cinematic experience. As well as tying into the series' history, The Old Country forms the start of a brand new era for Mafia, making it the perfect entry for both new and existing fans. Borderlands 4. The space western Borderlands series mixes cartoonish humor with hectic, comic book-style violence. And after the more fantastical spin-off Tiny Tina's Wonderland was released in 2022, developers are getting back to business for this hotly anticipated forquel. Deadly new planet Kairos may be brimming with bloodthirsty B-sites, but there's also treasure to be found. That's where you and a fresh team of vault hunters come into play, just as long as you can avoid the ferocious Ripper Horde. Creators have promised the most ambitious entry in the franchise yet. Hopefully it'll be good enough to erase the memory of that disastrous film flop. Metal Gear Solid Delta: Snake Eater. Modernizing the 5th entry in a beloved series might seem like an odd place to start, but really, 2004's Metal Gear Solid: Snake Eater is the perfect introduction to Hideo Kojima's classic hero. Set in 1964, the game follows secret agent Solid Snake, who is tasked with saving a Russian rocket scientist and sabotaging a Soviet nuclear superweapon. Add in a bit of betrayal, political tension, and a whole lot of sneaking about the place. Snake Eater remains the benchmark when it comes to stealth titles. This remake will drag it into the present day, while remaining faithful to the source material. If it's anything like the recent Silent Hill 2 adaptation, we're in for a treat. Ghost of Yotei. With 2020's Ghost of Tsushima, developer Sucker Punch Productions delivered the rare modern open-world title that felt both comfortably familiar and creatively inventive. Ghost of Tsushima didn't break the genre mold so much as it used its historical setting as the basis of one of the most stunning and engaging open-world experiences this side of a Rockstar Games production. It is also arguably the best samurai title ever made. As the standalone sequel to Ghost of Tsushima, Ghost of Yotei obviously won't be able to ride the wave of surprising delights that helped elevate Tsushima among those who went into it with modest expectations. The Yotei team's promise to emphasize an underdog of vengeance story and the romance and beauty of feudal Japan should be more than enough to get you excited about the opportunity to dive back into this world where every pixel is a painting. Elden Ring: Nightreign. Elden Ring is one of the greatest action role-playing games of modern times. Despite a chunky expansion released earlier this year, fans are already talking about a potential sequel, something developers could see happening in the future but have no immediate plans stands for. However, they have been secretly working on a spin-off co-op title, set in a parallel universe to Elden Ring. Each round sees teams of 3 having to survive for 3 nights, with a boss battle ending each and every day. Scrape together resources to build a shelter, or head out into the brutal land of Limvold with your sword swinging. Whichever way you tackle it, teams will need to make split-second decisions to survive the horrors of the night. Challenges can also be undertaken solo, and developers have promised that Nightreign is definitely not a live service title, so there won't be any frustrating hidden costs down the line. Doom: The Dark Ages. The follow-up to 2020's brutal, brilliant Doom, Eternal is also a prequel to the original 2016 reboot of the genre-defining first-person shooter franchise. Got all that? Players will once again take control of the Doom Slayer as they fight through various violent obstacles, hopefully soundtracked by deliciously menacing bursts of industrial metal. Experience the epic cinematic origin story of the Doom Slayer's rage, teases an official description, while developers have issued a warning over the blood and gore, intense violence, and strong language. If you ask us, that's exactly what we want from Doom. Marvel 1943, Rise of Hydra. The relative lack of Marvel games during the MCU era of entertainment was always a shock. Conventional corporate wisdom tells us that we should be swimming in games that adapt and go beyond MCU movies and shows. Yet, we've been left with slim pickings so far. Thankfully, Marvel 1943 looks to help fill that considerable void. Set in Paris during World War II, this action-slash-adventure game will follow Captain America, Black Panther, and their military allies as they battle Hydra and the Axis forces. On paper, that's the exact kind of familiar yet distinct approach to Marvel gaming that helped make Insomniac's Spider-Man titles such a success. Grand Theft Auto 6. Perhaps the most anticipated game ever? Fans have been speculating about Grand Theft Auto 6 for over 10 years now, but all the hype reached fever pitch last year thanks to a brief teaser trailer that quickly shattered all sorts of viewing records. We know that GTA 6 returns to the Miami-inspired Vice City of previous games, and will probably focus on 2 protagonists that are based on notorious outlaws Bonnie and Clyde. Apart from that though, developers Rockstar have been keeping details on the down low. As of yet, there isn't even an official release date. Eternal Strands. It might have an unfortunately forgettable title, but Eternal Strands, from former Dragon Age creative director Mike Laidlaw's Yellow Brick Games studio, is intriguing stuff. It's a fantasy action RPG inspired by the likes of The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, and Shadow of the Colossus, with a bit of Monster Hunter thrown in as players venture out into a cataclysm-struck, open-zone world, scrambling around 25-meter-high climbable creatures known as the Arcs in order to secure resources needed to create new weapons and armor back at a base camp. Core to all this is the much-touted interplay between protagonist Bryn's magical abilities and the environment, its shifting temperatures, and a supposedly next-generation physics system, which promises unprecedented reactivity. What that means in practice remains to be seen, but it has the potential to be fascinating. Dispatch. Taking to the stage at the Game Awards 2024, Breaking Bad star Aaron Paul and video game acting legend Laura Bailey announced their new project, Dispatch. Described by developers as a superhero workplace comedy where choices matter, Dispatch asks players to take on the role of the hero formerly known as Mecha Man who has to accept a desk job when his suit is destroyed, manage a dysfunctional team of misfit heroes, and strategize who descend to emergencies around the city, all while balancing office politics, personal relationships, and your own quest to become a hero, explains the official listing. Westworld's Jeffrey Wright is also involved in this playful twist on a typical superhero story. The Outer Worlds 2. As the spiritual sequel to Fallout, New Vegas, 2019's The Outer Worlds was essentially a Dream Obsidian Entertainment RPG. Along with fulfilling quite a few Fallout fantasies, The Outer Worlds proved to be a compelling, enjoyable, genuinely funny, and surprisingly deep sci-fi role-playing experience in its own right. With The Outer Worlds 2, Obsidian has made it clear that they intend to pick up where they left off and simply go bigger with everything. On paper, it's not the most ambitious goal for a sequel. However, given that you can attribute many of The Outer Worlds' biggest flaws to its first draft nature, the team doesn't have to go too far out of its way to make this one of 2025's most essential role-playing experiences. Crimson Desert is officially on the way, with launch window now set for late 2025. The new open-world action-adventure from Black Desert Online developer Pearl Abyss promises to take us on a sprawling journey in an epic fantasy world as we follow the story of protagonist Cliff. Crimson Desert is set in a medieval fantasy world, on a continent called Pywell. Cliff, the main character, is a mercenary who finds himself beleaguered by the burdens of leadership and painful memories of his past. Initially announced all the way back in 2019, confirmation of the the latest release window came in a fresh announcement trailer that gave us another brief look at the story and setting that awaits us. From everything we've seen so far, it's certainly shaping up to be one of the most exciting new games headed our way. With various teasers and gameplay footage out there for us to explore, we know we can expect boss fights and get stuck into all manner of side activities in the world such as fishing, cooking, and more in the medieval continent of Hyrule. We can guess that the Crimson Desert release date will arrive either in April, June, or July of next year. However, nothing has been confirmed yet, so keep your eyes on this page as more information heads our way. In the meantime, you can read our list of the best single-player games to tide you over while we wait on more Crimson Desert updates. Clair Obscur, Expedition 33, is a breathtaking action RPG developed by the French studio Sandfall Interactive. It's set in a dark, surreal version of Belle Époque Paris, blending fantasy, art, and science fiction into a world that feels hauntingly beautiful and ominously dangerous. The game's title, Clair Obscur, is a reference to the artistic concept of chiaroscuro, the contrast between light and dark, which perfectly reflects the game's atmosphere and themes. In this world, humanity is locked in a desperate battle against the Paintress, a mysterious and godlike figure who, each year, erases people from existence by simply painting their names into reality. The remaining survivors formed Expedition 33, a last-ditch effort to ascend the tower where the Paintress resides and put an end to her reign. It's a narrative dripping with existential dread, high stakes, and artistic symbolism. The gameplay in Clair Obscur, Expedition 33 is shaping up to be an innovative blend of action RPG mechanics and turn-based strategy, drawing inspiration from both Final Fantasy and Persona, but with its own unique spin. Combat is turn-based but fluid, with real-time interactions during enemy attacks. Think of the timed button presses in games like Paper Mario or the Guardian Shield mechanics in Persona 5 Royal. You're not just selecting actions from a menu, you're actively dodging, parrying, and engaging with enemy attacks to minimize damage. Players will control a squad of characters, each with distinct abilities and combat roles. Some may excel in direct combat, while others might manipulate the battlefield or support teammates. This party dynamic encourages strategic planning for battles, rather than just brute force. Magic in this world is heavily tied to artistic expression. Abilities feel like strokes of a brush or bursts of paint across the battlefield. Imagine conjuring massive ink-based beasts or warping the environment using spectral colors. It's as if every spell you cast leaves an artistic imprint on the world. This game isn't just another action RPG. It's shaping up to be an artistic masterpiece in both narrative and gameplay. The concept of using paint and art as both a weapon and a storytelling tool is incredibly fresh. The setting, a dark, twisted version of Belle Époque Paris, is unlike anything else in gaming right now. If you're tired of generic fantasy worlds and cookie-cutter RPGs, Clair Obscur, Expedition 33 offers something bold, creative, and atmospheric. Vampire: The Masquerade, Bloodlines 2. A sequel 20 years in the making. Vampire: The Masquerade, Bloodlines 2 follows on from the 2004 original. Set in a world where werewolves and other mythical beasties have secretly shaped human history, your vampire must stay alive by feeding on unsuspecting people while avoiding detection. Bloodlines 2 takes place in modern-day Seattle, and players can choose a number of different clans to lead, each with their own special abilities. It's not all bloodlust and bats though. With a group of rebel vampires out to shake up the status quo and your own vampiric conscience to deal with, there's plenty to sink your teeth into. Ninja Gaiden: Ragebound. The Ninja Gaiden franchise returns as a 2D side-scroller that will offer the classic lore and gameplay of the Tecmo-developed Ninja Gaiden series from the 8-bit era, with the depth and intensity of the modern 3D entries. So, it's not quite a throwback, but rather a reimagining of the franchise's roots. The biggest reasons to be excited about this one, though, can be found on the back of the box, relatively speaking. Published by Dotemu, the team behind many of the best retro revivals in recent years, and developed by the Game Kitchen, the studio responsible for the exceptional Blasphemous, this one is almost guaranteed to rock.